Hello, all. Garland Nixon here, and today we are going to ponder the imponderable. We're going to talk about the question that everybody gets freaked out about, and that's kind of a chicken and the egg question. Who's in charge? Is it the US? Is it Israel? Let's talk. Hello, all. Garland Nixon here, and so I think we should approach this question as an intellectual exercise rather than as a question. Rather than we've got to find an answer to this question. We've got to find out once and for all, who's in charge, so we know where to look to find the culprit. Let's approach this as an intellectual exercise, and let's play along with this a little bit. And it's interesting. Somebody always says, I know Garland's view on this. It's the only thing I disagree with Garland on. Here's the thing about it. Good. You should disagree with me. Wonderful. That's excellent. That's outstanding. I'm glad you disagree with me on that, because I disagree with myself from day to day. But I've decided to take a different approach. And I'm just saying, to me, that's important every day. You must do self-reflection. You must look at the questions you ask, and you must look at yourself through the lens of those questions and try to figure out what you're getting at, which brings me to this important point. Rather than just answer the question, let's look at the question. Let's figure out, is that even the right question? If you will remember various movies, such as what was it? I, Robot. When, remember, that's the right question. Oftentimes we ask questions and we get locked in so much on that question that we do not consider the possibility that we're asking the wrong question. So let's start here. Who's in charge? Israel or the US? I could start here. Why do we need to ask that question? What is the importance of the question? What do we get out of asking that question, right? Who's in charge? I think part of it is that Americans and a lot of people want a culprit. They want to get to an end. They want to find an enemy. They want to find a villain. And so we have to ask who's in charge so we can find a villain, so we can trace this all the way to the end. And somewhere at the very end, there is a villain or a villain entity. It's the international Zionists, it's the bankers, it's the Jews, it's the warmongers, it's the military industrial complex. We have this need to find a villain. An enemy, the search for a villain and a hero, the search for somebody to fight against. Some of that we're taught by superhero movies, and we're taught by these war movies where there's the good side and the bad side, all of this kind of stuff, right? And ultimately, to me, it's like so many other questions. Questions don't always reflect what we're finding out, what we're answering. More often than not, the question and the answer to the question reflects what's going on inside of us, reflects our thought process, reflects our view of the world. The question is irrelevant. Who's in charge? This person or that person, this group or that group. You'd have to do this. You'd have to start off by defining the United States. Israel's in charge of what? Are they in charge of our military? Are they in charge of our government? Are they in charge of our industrial? Are they in charge of what? And how do we define the United States? Unfortunately, in an empire, if you really look at it, when our government talks about our U.S. interests, government interests, our interests around the world. Tony Blinken was asked a while back, would you use nuclear weapons? Would you respond? And Tony Blinken said, oh, we would use nuclear weapons to address our interests, to protect our interests. Who? When they say protect our interests, they ain't talking about you. They ain't talking about me. They ain't talking about the working class. Again, who are they talking about? Let's start here. One of the things that, what's his name? One of the Friedman guys with the New York Times said, I don't know if it's the father or the son, but what he said was, you couldn't have McDonald's without McDonnell Douglas. What that means is this. There is a economic element in our society. Wall Street, whatever you want to call them, bankers, the industrialists, whatever you want to call them, who has a need to extract resources from countries around the world, and they want them at the cheapest possible, at the cheapest possible price around the world, in order to make a gigantic profit. They're like, we got to make a lot of money. We've got money. We've got to invest that money to make more money. That what we've got to do is get richer and richer and richer. And the way that we found that's the easiest way to do it is that in order to make things or build things or do whatever, we have to extract the resources so that we can make these things, and we got to get them cheap. And if we just do business with countries around the world, they're going to want a fair deal, and we're not going to get them really, really cheap, and we're not going to get exorbitant a profit. So in order to do that, we must commandeer the military. We must commandeer the intelligence community, and we must use those in order to go around the world and to overthrow governments, to control countries, to control shipping lanes and means of moving natural resources and methods of processing natural resources. All of those things, we must control those things in order to get a gigantic profit. So I believe that when Tony Blinken said our interests, and when they talk about US interests or American interests, they're talking about that class. They're talking about that economic class that says, hey, look, we sell oil. We need to control the price of oil. And ultimately, what this has melted into in the United States is the need to from the need to control oil, the need to control rubber and cobalt and copper and everything, the need to control the shipping lanes, right? To the need to control everything because it's falling apart. The natural process of the world, the natural process of other countries rising, of technology changing, of people needing different things, and the prices changing for different things, has come to a point where in order to control anything, you have to control everything. And so I think that the U.S. has come to a conclusion, and that is, well, we can't necessarily control the shipping lanes, and we can't necessarily control everything anymore. We can't control the air and the Africa and everything. So we have to pick something. Oil is the lifeblood of industry worldwide. We got to take the Middle East. We got to completely control. We got to move on the Middle East. And once we take the Middle East, right? Look, why did Benjamin Netanyahu even said Pakistan is next? Pakistan knows they're next. Why is that? To get closer to China. You want to close the back door to China. You don't want China to be able to run oil and natural resources from the Middle East through Pakistan, through Iran, to Russia, to China. So you can't take Russia on head on. You're losing in a catastrophic loss. You can't take China on head on. You figured that out now. They don't talk about that as much anymore because they realize they can't even take the Houthis on. They realize that technologically speaking, they're behind. So they can't fight China or Russia. I think they're coming to that conclusion. And rather than try to go head on to Russia, China, or Russia and or China, the plan is we take the oil, we take the Middle East, and then we can siphon it off from everybody. We can shut everybody off from the oil in the Middle East, and we can come in through the back door. We weaken these countries by taking the oil. We strengthen ourselves by taking this gigantic realm of natural resources. We control all of the main deposits of the oil in the world, and we use that leverage to take down Russia and China, to take down all of our enemies, to take down anybody who would dare fight against us. Therefore, we get to Israel. If, in fact, the United States sees the Middle East as, and all of this is just a hypothesis, sees the Middle East as the realm they need to control to take out Russia and China, because it's obvious. It's obvious. We got a whole bunch of rusty old ships that are nothing but targets. We've got planes that don't fly well, and God knows we don't have the military industrial complex to make as many missiles as Russia and China, either air defense or offensive attack missiles. It's a hopeless job. We can't defeat the Houthis. So head to head to Russia against Russia and China through proxy, right? We want to use our proxies. We want to use Ukraine and all of that stuff. And of course, we want to use South Korea. They ain't happy with that anymore. We want to use the Philippines. We want to use Japan. Some of these countries are starting to look over their shoulder and say, man, we're just going to be used. And like Ukraine, it's getting more and more difficult to use these proxies in the way that we want to use them. And we can't supply them with the things we need that they'll need from us anyway. So once again, we can continue to sell them weapons and make lots of money. But our plan to control everything will fall through if we try to use the Ukraine model in Taiwan and the Philippines and blah, blah, blah. So what we need is we need the Middle East. Now, here's the point. Who's in control, the US or Israel? Ultimately, there's an old saying that goes like this. The outcome is the intention, right? What outcome are we looking at currently? And again, let's ask these questions a little differently. What outcomes are we looking at in the Middle East right now? What is that? How about this? Let's start with this before we project forward. The current outcome is what? Let's just evaluate where we are right now from the perspective of the US and Israel. Let's start where we are right now. The United States is politically unstable. We've got a government that is completely out of touch with the people, that is acting in a way that the people are unhappy with. We've got the whole MAGA thing, which is really up in the air right now. MAGA voted for some particular thing that they asked for. And they're continually trying to convince themselves, though Trump has thoroughly betrayed them, and it's obviously that he never had any intentions of going along with that crap. But the point being, they're still hanging on. MAGA is still trying to convince itself, no, Trump's going to do the right thing. No. We said no more foreign wars. Trump's going to do no more foreign wars. No. We said we wanted, we wanted to address the $37 trillion deficit. And we better ignore that one because the big, beautiful bill is just the opposite. And there's unhappiness in MAGA land a little bit, but there's still a lot of people who are dealing with cognitive dissonance. You know, a lot of who are still saying, I believe Trump's going to do the right thing, even though the evidence that they're seeing bit by bit betrays their hope. But cognitive dissonance, what happens when you believe something and the evidence against what you believe becomes greater than the evidence that supports what you believe, and those two things crash. And that's what MAGA is dealing with right now. And I suspect that MAGA is going to be dealing with that for a while. How long MAGA can hold on, how many people slowly, bit by bit, crumble, we shall see. But everything that they wanted and they were told, it was just a pack of lies. Because Trump couldn't do it if he wanted to, which he doesn't. He couldn't do it if he wanted to, because he doesn't have the authority that MAGA would like to believe that he has, that everybody wants to. Americans are trained to believe that they vote some person in or persons in, and those persons look out for their interest. Well, that's a joke. But some of us are waking up or have woken up to that reality. So where are we now? In the United States, we're politically unstable. We have people who, a growing group of people who are coming to the realization that they've just been had. This isn't a democracy, and that they can't vote their way out of this because the system is wholly captured by the ruling elite. And it has always been. There are those who are thinking it's just captured now, and those who are thinking that it has been captured for a long time. And again, that's irrelevant. It's captured by the ruling elite, and it don't represent you. And more and more people are waking up to that, right? Which makes this even more difficult for this way. Think about this. The US, if they were to say, we're going to war with fill in the blank, and I think they know this, and said, okay, now here's what we're going to do. We need a draft. What do you think would happen to 30 and unders? What do you think would happen with the 30 and unders if they tried to draft? They'd burn this place to the ground, wouldn't they? They go and fight for Israel, nobody else. Ukraine ain't happening. They're miserable. Their government doesn't deliver for them. And if their government says now, they don't want these foreign wars. If the government says now, we haven't delivered from you, we have preyed on you, and of course, we've delivered nothing for you, but we have these foreign wars that you specifically said you didn't want. Time for you to go die in them. Yeah, good luck with that. Right? So the US is completely politically unstable. It is culturally unstable. There are people arguing, oh, I don't like the LGBTQ stuff. There are people who still want to be, very religious people. There are people who just want to be secular and don't want anything to do with any of it, just want to live their lives. And meanwhile, our government has been pushing a particular cultural way of thinking, a kind of adjusted cultural way of thinking. And there's the natural revolt against that. So culturally, we're unstable. Culturally, we're unstable. Politically, we're unstable. Economically, well, do I even have to talk about how unstable we are? Okay, so all that being said, the United States is in a position of being weak and getting weaker. And it's weak in every way. It's militarily weaker. We don't have the industry we need to make these offensive weapons, defensive weapons, all of the above in order to go around the world and control and attack other people. And we're being outpaced technologically in every way, shape, or form, and in particular militarily. So we're unstable politically. We're unstable economically. We're unstable culturally. Militarily, we're weaker than we've been in a long, long time. And the countries that we want to control are more powerful than they've been. And not only that, the method that military technology, the way that military technology affects the modern warfare has changed. Now, an expensive plane is of no value to you because the cheaper missiles can take it out. Flying over and bomb somebody is irrelevant. I got to pay for the plane, pay for the pilot, pay for the fuel, as opposed to a one-way missile that hits its target with a bigger warhead and explodes. So we're behind in military strategy. Every way you look at it, the United States is no longer the powerful entity that it once had, and it's trying to be, and it's trying to regain that, but it doesn't have any of it. Okay. What is Israel right now? If instead of saying who's in charge, what is it? So the U.S. is unstable on all fronts. Now let's go to Israel. What is Israel? Things ain't looking so good for it. So you have to ask yourself, if Israel is in control of the United States, right? If I'm in control of something, if I control something, right? Then in fact, I'm going to benefit from that, right? Am I going to control somebody? Like, let's say a guy is I'm just using this for instance, a person is very controlling of their girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, right? Their significant other. And in controlling them, they want their attention all the time. They want sex from them all the time. They want to know where they are all the time. They want to decide what kind of clothes they wear. They want all the control over this person to deal with their insecurities, of course. And they want to constantly benefit from it. They want to feed their insecurities. I don't have to be afraid you're going to leave me because I know where you are all the time. I don't have to be worried about other guys looking at you because I control what you wear. Don't wear that. That's too short. Don't wear that. That's too tight. Right? I'm going to control everything, and I feel like I'm benefiting. And the only way I'm really benefiting is feeding my insecurities, because I'm always afraid, and I know in my heart that I'm a piece of crap and you're better than I am. That's my perspective. And so my benefit is I got to feed that insecurity. You're not going to leave me because I control you. I control everything. I control your mind. I control. I fool myself to believe that, right? But so I can benefit. Feed my insecurities. Feed. That's my benefit. Get something out of it. Relationships, people want to get something out of the relationship. Could be happiness, could be kids, could be security, could be sex, could be aesthetic and visuals. You date a person just because you think they look good. They aggravate you, they get on your nerves, but they look good. So you date them because they look good, right? And then you go out and your buddies all look and say, man, you sure got a hot babe there. You feed your insecurities there, right? Anyway, you get something out of this relationship. So look at Israel, what they're getting out of this relationship right now. Where is Israel right now? Let's evaluate it. Politically, before October 7th, Israel had been through like 3 governments in like 19 months. They kept going through government. After their government would fall apart, they'd have another. Government would fall apart, they had another one. Then you had Smotrich and Ben Gvir and Netanyahu. You had extremists in power, absolute crazy mad extremists. And they were trying to consolidate their power through changing laws. And a massive amount of people in Israel didn't like it. And so prior to October 7th, you had massive protests in the street. They were unhappy because their government was now trying to do to them what they did to the Palestinians, which is only natural. And that is to control them, to take their freedom, to take their choices and political choices, all of the above. So you had a politically unstable government at that point, and the people were unhappy with their government. October 7th hits. Okay, so now from October 7th to now, Israel is a country that is perpetually at war with no end in sight. Let me ask you this. Who wants to be in a country that's perpetually at war with no end in sight? Who in a country benefits? If you are in a country that's perpetually at war with no end in sight, how happy are you? You got missiles flying in, exploding. You got people around the world hate you, calling you names, and now you have to say, we're just better than everybody else, so we don't have to worry about it. But you got to worry about traveling. You got to worry about going to countries. Oh, I'm from Israel. And then people say, I hate your guts. Get out of my bar. We don't serve you here. You're a bunch of child killers, right? The Israelis were already politically unstable, and now they're militarily unstable. As I did a video about it last night, Israel currently is nothing but a war machine. It is not a country in the traditional way that you understand a country. A country, it's like if you got a house, right? You got to do stuff to your house. You got to clean stuff up. You got to, I got a gutter that's going bad. I got to fix the gutter. Oh, the grass. I got to cut the grass. Oh, we got a bad spot. I got to try to see if I can clean that little area up in my lawn and replant some seeds, right? Oh, I've got some paint coming off the shed. Let me paint the shed. Oh, I've got to clean the power wash some of the mold off the bottom of the house. I got to do different things, right? You have to continually do something to your house. If you got a house, you got to do things to it, or it'll just fall apart on you over the course of time. You can't just ignore it. What's happening with Israel? Is Israel improving or is it falling apart? Not only is Israel unable to rise, in other words, to bring in more businesses, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Intel was going to build either a $5 billion or a $25 billion chip plant in Israel, some huge chip plant, might I add. Clearly, that was part of the U.S. anti-China process, right? It was, we're going to build ships here because, well, hell, we're probably planning on blowing up Ukraine anyway, and we're trying to keep, blowing up Taiwan, Freudian slip anyway, and we're going to try to keep China from getting lots of chips, so we'll build it in Israel. It was part of the U.S.'s anti-China project, right? Okay, we're building this big chip plant. That would have been jobs. It would have been great things for Israel. That's out the window because all your major industrial and technology parks have been hit with missiles. Iran aimed at specifically, they made no bones about it. They very specifically aimed at the heart of Israel's economy to smash it to bits. And not only were they successful in smashing it to bits, and even the resources behind it, the power plants, the refineries, all that stuff smashed to bits, has to be rebuilt. Okay. And what else did they smash to bits? They smashed all of this together. If you remember, before this, Hezbollah was firing missiles in. There was Syrian or groups firing missiles in. The Houthis were firing missiles in. If you lived in Israel, you lived in a war zone. Somebody was always firing missiles at you day and night. Imagine if you're living in Israel and now you've been there for 2 years and you know what you're used to? Wah, 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 wah. Oh, there goes the air attack alarms again. Let's go in a basement somewhere or a bomb shelter. You spend half of your nights in a bomb shelter if you live in Israel. So what condition is Israel in right now? If it's in such great control of the United States, how is Israel benefiting? Israel is not benefiting. Let's even do this. Let's separate Israel in the same way that I separate the United States. If you're the ruling elite, you benefited If you're these super rich people, you benefited from all these jobs going overseas and offshoring, as it were. You've benefited from bailouts because you took the bailout money and you bought your own stocks back and you increased the value of your stocks. And because you own this company and you own all of these stocks and other companies, as companies continue to buy back their stocks and increase the value of stocks artificially, you just get richer. The value of your stocks get richer, you get richer and richer. You've benefited. But the other 99% of us have benefited, have we? As you do that, we end up getting inflation because you're getting bailed out with all this extra printed money. We get inflation. We suffer. The value of our homes and cars and things rises to a point where now we're dealing with the infamous, what do they call that? I forgot what the term is used, but where the prices, the pay of the people goes down and the cost of the things that they need go up, and you end up with a situation where the people can't afford the things to buy the things that their companies are making or importing. And that's where we are. So even then, the super rich benefited, and the other 99%, maybe 95%, maybe 5% benefited. The other 95% suffered. Look at Israel. The overwhelming majority of the people, right? A small group of people who are ideologues, right? They are not technically benefiting, only from an ideological perspective. Right? They're on edge. They're fighting off the dogs. They got the world hates them. And so ideologically, they're like, yes, we're warmongers and we're fascists and we want to fight everybody. So good. We get to go into war and we get to fight all the time and we get to threaten people all the time. But is that a joyous life? Is that a happy life? Meanwhile, and this was very telling. And on this channel, I talked about this. Meanwhile, during the recent conflict with Iran, the government had to literally say Israeli citizens can't leave. They have to stay here. Imagine what condition a government is in when it has to tell its citizens, you're not able to leave. Nah, you can't leave. You got to stay here. Can't go. And you're talking people, many who had, most, I would argue, probably had dual citizenship. They had every right to go back to the other country that they had citizenship with, and your country said no. And here's another. Israel has been forced to hide the damage that was done during the ruling elite of Israel and the United States. Let's face it, it's not like U.S. military people, it's not like the U.S. media went over to Israel and said, hey, we know you're hiding the amount of damage you had, show it to us. We demand it. It's not like the government of the U.S. said, we want to see it. The government of the U.S. and the Israeli government together have done everything they can to hide the actual damage to Israel, which we know was monumental, right? We know that their economic heart was hit. We know that their military bases were slammed. We could go on and on and on. Refineries hit, you name it. Industrial plants, military industrial plants hit. Israel. A lot of people want to argue that Israel's going to attack Iran again. They may attack Iran again in late summer, but I don't know how they're going to do it. You know what I mean? They're in bad shape. Can they take? Okay, so they attack Iran again. Can they take? They got years worth of damage. They got decades worth of damage done to them in 10 days. Can Israel take another 10 days of Iran? Can they take another 10 days? I don't think so. If there's another attack on Iran, it has to be the U.S. But the U.S. is unstable politically, economically, and militarily. If the U.S. attacks Iran again, the American people are going to be furious, and Iran's going to close the Straits of Hormuz. And then we're going to experience some very serious inflation, and the U.S. will become even more politically unstable. And as I have argued time and again, look, if you got a real bad immune system, if your immune system is bad, you want to be very careful. You find out somebody's got all of these terrible diseases or whatever, you want to stay away from them. I know, have friends and people I know that maybe have had a kidney transplant or a liver transplant or something like that. And when a person takes a transplant, they have to specifically take medicine which suppresses their immune system so that their body won't attack the organ, right? Well, if you have suppressed immune system, even though it's artificially, you don't want to get sick because your body cannot properly respond to that. And they can't take you off of those immunosuppressants, because then it'll attack the organ and you'll die. So you're in a 6-card hole, as they say. You're in a bad situation. So you got to be very, 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 very wary of putting yourself in a position to get sick. Why do I say that? The U.S. economy is very, very sick. The U.S. economy is in bad shape. It's teetering on the edge. And a lot of us know how bad it is. A lot of Americans are just wandering around aimlessly, but we know we're on a razor's edge to an economic crash, which is, one might argue, inevitable at this point. But if you got dry tinder, you got to stay away from sparks. Right? No, what do they say that's you're going camping in a national forest and they're like, hey, it's fire season, no campfires. I'm sorry, one spark could set off the whole forest and we'd be in a world of trouble and it'd burn half the state, right? Can the United States afford to close the Straits of Hormuz, to take an economic hit and the economy starts doing this? Because even if they close the Straits of Hormuz one day and they open them back up a week later, once the U.S. starts crashing and people start running for the banks and cashing out this, and oh my God, I got to sell. I got to get rid of this. Holy crap. Oh, and then the companies look, well, I got to lay off. I can't afford it. Things are going bad. Nobody's buying anything. I got to and then the layoffs start. Once that cycle starts, there ain't no way to unstart it, right? Once it happens, there's no way to stop it. So it's possible, out of desperation, yes, the Israelis may attack Iran again. 10 days later, there ain't no Israel. And I don't mean that they'd have to flatten the cities. The Iranians have done something much smarter, and that is, we're going to take the heart of your country out. You ain't a country if you don't have military bases, if you don't have economic and technology centers, if you don't have refineries, all of those things. If you don't have those things, you ain't a country. And so what we'll do is we'll just poke holes in all of those things until you can't stop the bleeding. And even if you have at war for us for a while, at some point you'll wake up. They're almost hollow now. They're almost like Ukraine, where they don't have anything but money and weapons incoming from the West. They got nothing else. That's where Ukraine is, and that's the direction that Israel's heading. And if they attack Iran again in 10 days, they will fully be Ukraine. And the United States also takes the chance that if they attack Iran, then Straits of Hormuz is the worst thing. I'll put it like this. Iran, if I was Iran, I wouldn't attack the U.S. bases. If the U.S. attacked me, I'd say, all right, if I attack your bases, you'll try to use that and say, Americans, they're killing Americans. We have to do something. If I was Iran, you attack me day one, we're closing the Straits of Hormuz. Mined, ships sank, everything. And I would send out the message to all insurers. Look, any ships that come through the Straits of Hormuz will be targeted with anti-ship missiles. Number one, who's going to run that ship? Number two, they're not going to have insurance, so they ain't going to be able to do it anyway. At that point, you've already taken out Israel's economy. Now you'd drive a stake through the heart of Americans. And if America fires a nuke or Israel fires a nuke, they've driven a stake through their own economies. They might as well be nuking Wall Street and the city of London and the banks in the West. In fact, Steve Witkoff gave away the game. If you remember, what did Steve Witkoff say? He said, if a nuke goes off anywhere, here's what he said: if the nuke goes off anywhere on this earth, all the markets will crash. He knows that's true. And in particular, of all of the anywheres on this earth, in particular in the Middle East, they all crash, which means that all that money that Steve Witkoff has in the market and all these other billionaires have in the market, that crashes along with it. And this is not like the normal crash. This wouldn't be like the 2008 crash where it's a crash, but they can bail people out and then they can, no, they don't even know how it is. What happens? Which direction does the fallout flow? Oh, the fallout fell over Saudi Arabia. The fallout fell over the UAE and over Qatar, which means nobody can even work those oil fields anymore, which means you can't pump oil out of them because things that come out of that, everything will be all contaminated. It comes, so that's it. Those oil fields are closed for the foreseeable future. And by that, I mean a half-life of 25,000 years or something crazy like that. The Middle East becomes Chernobyl. And now, not only do you not control the oil in the Middle East, there ain't no oil in the Middle East to control. It's effectively a suicide pill. That's why I don't think they do it. I think they want to control things. They want a suicide. They don't want a suicide pill. But the bottom line is Israel's damn near dead now. If Israel controls the United States, if Israel is control of the United States, how is Israel benefiting? It is nothing, I've said this over, but a hollow conduit for war. And never, ever, ever has it been more obvious. I was reading this thing the other day, and they were talking about these settlers. And what they said was, these settlers in whatever area this is, they don't work. They're there, and they receive money, and everything is free, and they live, and their job is to be in these areas. That's what they do. They're in these areas, whatever areas that they're not supposed to build settlements. So the government comes in and says, I'm going to build a settlement in this area. Settlers, which are the most extreme religious extremists of Europe, which are the east, of course, of Israel, which of course, the most extreme religious extremists are the ones that are easiest to manipulate to do stupid things. All right. You, Mr. Settler, you're going to go over there and live in this area. And of course, you ain't going to work because you're God's chosen people. Everything that you need will be provided for you. Let me tell you something. Anytime somebody does that for you, they ain't looking out for your best interest. They didn't stick those settlers. Why do you think? Think about this. The billionaire Zionists, the billionaire period, everywhere they are, right? What do? They invest. They see everything as an investment. They're paying for these, which would normally be working class people, average schmucks, which they have nothing but disdain for. I don't care what their religion is. The billionaires have nothing but disdain for the average working putz. And in this instance, they ain't even working. If they're giving these people stuff, it ain't because they love them, and it ain't because of their religion. That's not the way they work. They're giving them stuff because they see a benefit out of sticking these people in this area. And so they give them a bribe. We put you in this area. We tell them your God loves you, God's chosen people. Your job, God wants you to sit and stand in that area and make sure everything's okay and make sure we keep that area. And in return, you ain't got to work a day in your life. We'll give you everything. That is an investment. They're not doing it for the settlers. They're doing it for themselves. And now, in my opinion, it's time to pay up. Now it's time to live there while this country goes straight to hell and is now used for what it was always intended to be used for, if necessary. Why do you build a fort? You build a fort because you're at war and you want an area to fight. To me, I look at Israel now like Dien Bien Phu. And that was in, you should, if you don't know about that, it's an interesting. What happened during the Vietnamese War? How the hell did the French get run out of what was French Indochina back then? They basically a colonial area where they abused, mistreated people and stole all of their stuff. Okay. So what they decided to do is we're so technologically and more powerful than these backward Vietnamese people, that we're going to demonstrate our power. We're going to go out in enemy territory in Vietnam, a place called Dien Bien Phu. And we're going to build this huge base in their own area. And we can airlift stuff out, supplies back and forth. They put up several towers, and so they could, observation towers, and we can watch everything they're doing. And we can go out and attack them and come back to the base. We're so powerful, we can build a base in their own area. and there's nothing they can do about it. And we can attack them anytime they want, and we're so strong they can't do anything to our base. So the French build this huge military base in an area called Dien Bien Phu. And it was in a valley. Building a military base in a valley. I think you see the direction this is going, and it's going to apply to the Israeli thing. I think you see the direction this is going. So they build in this valley. Oh, what a brilliant military strategy. In a valley, giant base, lots of people. Why? Look, the Vietnamese have no way to get up on the mountains and to look down on us and fire down on us. That would take, too much work. They don't have any way to do that. Well, meanwhile, what the Vietnamese did was the big guns, big, huge artillery guns, right? They pulled them up to the side of the mountains. Well, they didn't have tractors and bulldozers and things like that would get them up. You know what they had? People. They'd take thousands and thousands of people with ropes and chains and lines and drag the artillery pieces up the mountains overlooking Dien Bien Phu. So the base is down here, and the mountains surrounding it, they put 212 artillery pieces on the heights overlooking Dien Bien Phu. Because let's face it, Dien Bien Phu was so powerful. These poor little sandal-wearing people were just not, certainly technologically, intellectually, they were inferior. We're going to show them how strong we are. So one bright morning, 7 a.m., a round comes flying in from up in the mountains. Uh-oh, Houston, we got a problem. And basically, they didn't imagine 212 artillery pieces opening up on you, and they're firing round after round after round. The only thing the French could do was surrender. And now, by that time, the United States was fully funding the war. And then when the French left, the U.S. came in and said, okay, well, we'll show you how it's done, and the rest is history, right? But what was Dien Bien Phu? We're surrounded by our enemy. We're technologically, intellectually more sophisticated than them. They don't have a chance against us. Our technology is better. We got planes. We got all this. They don't have any of that stuff. So, boy, we're going to do whatever we want to do, and we're going to laugh at them. Well, you stuck Israel, right? Which is let's face it, it is Europe in the Middle East, right? The Europeans came in and they drew all the maps right through tribal lands. They put puppet governments in various countries. Okay, we're going to control the Middle East, and we're going to build Dien Bien Phu. We're going to put a base in there. And that base, we needed an excuse, a reason. I know. We just killed all 6 million Jews. We'll blame it on the Arabs. What the hell? Why not? And then we'll stick the Jews in there, which is even better. We'll then oppress the Arab and Muslim and people in the region, kill a bunch of them, really piss them off. And then we can even more convince the Jews, hey, these people hate you. You're surrounded by those who hate you. Kind of like Dien Bien Phu. But don't worry about it, because technologically, you're superior to them. Militarily, intellectually, politically. How about this? The only democracy in the Middle East. Politically, you're superior to them. Intellectually, you have a democracy while they're just running around. They don't know, sandal-wearing people. They know nothing. You are superior in every way. We're going to put you there in this little Dien Bien Phu area. And trust me when I tell you this, they'll never be able to touch you. If you think about this. Think about and we're going to give you the greatest air defense system ever. David, Sling, Thad, Had, Smad, Bad, you name it. We got to name them things from we're going to name them things from the Old Testament so you feel a religious connection to them. We'll do all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about it. Well, what are they going to do? Fire on you. And there's a very interesting parallel here where in all of their arrogance, in all of their belief that they were military and intellectually superior to the enemy, to the people in the area, to the sandal wearers, right? The Vietnamese wear sandals. A lot of people in the Middle East wear sandals. Sandals are great. I like sandals. But I guess you're inferior if you wear sandals. So I guess I'm intellectually inferior also because I like sandals. Anyway, my point is, one beautiful morning, the Israelis decide they're going to slap the hell out of the Persians. And in come missiles, just like Dien Bien Phu. Smack, 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 until they had to throw their hands up. Now, they had to pretend that they weren't surrendering, but clearly it was a surrender. It was, hey, we're going to run out of missiles. Why don't we stop this war? We're about to run out of missiles, and we're not going to be able to defend ourselves. We got to tell the people in our country they can't leave. The Iranians weren't doing that. We've got to beg for the United States to come in and bail us out. The Iranians weren't asking anybody for anybody to bail them out. The Iranians had settled in and said, this is going to be a long attrition war. Let's do this. And the Israelis had to tap out. And afterwards, they still got to hide the amount of damage that's done. So I say, instead of asking who's in charge, ask what the outcome is. How's things going for Israel right now? I mean, if they're in such great charge, the outcome doesn't appear like the outcome should appear if they're calling all the shots. Hell, if that's calling the shots, then I wouldn't see what it would look like if they weren't calling the shots. They're beat up, broken, and they're calling the shots. Maybe the question of who's calling the shots is irrelevant. Maybe the only question is, what outcome do we have here? Why do we have a need to know who's calling the shots? And might I add, people use this term, globalism, the globalists, the oligarchs, the international banks, blah, blah, blah. The reality is this: maybe even that question reflects an inability of many of us to move into the world that we're in today, right? In that the globalists, whatever terms you want to call them, the international people, the oligarchs, Zionist oligarchs, non-Zionist oligarchs, all of the above, are not as interested in one country or another. But what is it? I think Apple's headquarters is on some island somewhere. Why is it on that island? Because they have got like an office on that island. But why? Because in that island, you don't really have to pay any taxes. So whatever the case may be, boom, I'm on this island. It's like people opening a corporation in Delaware. Why? There's no state taxes in Delaware, right? It's the whole thing about the Isle of Cyprus or some of these Caribbean islands where the banking laws are lax, right? These internationalists, these globalists don't really care about the name of a country or anything else. The only thing they care about this country is, what value is this country to me? How can I benefit from living in this country? How can I benefit from moving my business to this country? How can I utilize the dynamics of this country to my benefit? Do you think they feel any difference about the United States and Israel? Do you think that these people who are, let's say a lot of them are Americans, do you think they're saying we've got to have a stable and wealthy America so everybody's happy? They don't give a crap about America. They live on an island somewhere. So now if they can benefit and it continually unravels America, which is obvious what they're doing, do you think they care? No, because this ain't their country, because they don't have a country. By the same token, I think they give a crap about Israel. Look at Israel. It's a hellhole right now. It's a broken, busted up war machine where they literally got to say to the people, you can't leave. It's a concentration camp for Jews. Literally, once you start telling the people you can't leave, it's kind of a concentration camp, isn't it? And that's exactly what they've been telling people. The whole premise of Israel, yes, it's a home for the Jews where they'll be safe. It's gone to hell. It's not there anymore. It's not safe anymore. And they're telling a lot of people they can't leave, and anybody who has the ability to leave are getting the hell out. So as we ask who's in charge of Israel versus the United States, these billionaires, these Zionists, these globalists just say, how can we use the dynamics in Israel to our benefit? How can we use the dynamics in the United States to our benefit? How can we use the banking laws in Cyprus, the Isle of Man, the Caribbean islands? How can we use the dynamics, the laws, the tax laws, the banking laws, the ability to launder money in this country, that country, this country, that country? How can we use them to our benefits? Do you think they care how things work out in Cyprus or the Isle of Man or whatever Caribbean island they use to launder their money? Do you think they give a crap? Oh, we can go to this country. Why? Because we can have, you can have sex with children legally in this country. We can go to that country because they have a great, what do you call it, sex industry or whatever the heck these degenerates want to do, right? That country is good because I can do this in that country. Well, who's in control, that country or this country? I don't understand the question. All I know is I want to do X and I can do it in that country and I'm going to do it in that country. And in this country, I can do Y and I'm going to go to that country when I want to do Y. And in that country, I can do Z. I'm going to go to this country and I'm going to store my money in this country over here, which is country V, and on and on and on. I'm going to keep my yachts in this country because there's no, because yachts can be classified as a second home and I can take all of it, on and on and on. That's the way they view the world. And we're stuck in the past saying, who's in charge? Israel or the United States? Where the people who are running this operation and all the other operations don't have a United States or Israel. They just got their advantages and where they can get them anywhere on the planet. And now they're kind of peeping at Mars. Hey, what happens if things go screwy here? Can we build a base in Mars maybe? Let's give it a shot. They're trying to think about Mars. What do you think? Hey, who's in charge? Earth or Mars? That's next. They can build something on Mars, although that I don't believe it'll work, but let's just say for the sake of argument it did. And they was to start to build colonies for billionaires on Mars. Then what would we argue? Yeah, Mars is in charge of things. Why? Because they got all this stuff on Mars and we don't have anything. And they got swimming pools, they got food. We ain't got that here. Look at that. Mars is great. I think Mars is in charge. No, I think the Earth is in charge. But to the billionaire, they laugh when you ask those questions because there ain't no Earth or Mars. There's wherever they can go in this solar system to get benefits. We still are trapped in a dynamic, in a paradigm of nations. So we ask questions based on our paradigm that there are various nations and each nation has advantages or disadvantages. And each nation, an individual nation, looks out for the advantages of that individual nation over another individual nation, whereas the globalists look out for they're a-national. The globalists are a-national. So how can you understand what they're doing and their power dynamics and who's in charge when their paradigm, their view of the world is a-national and your view of the world is stuck in the 1940s, this country versus that country? The 1940s. They all look, Dubai. What do you think? They all go to Dubai. Why? Monaco, wherever. We all go here. Used to be Cuba. There was a time when Cuba was the CIA / the mafia, and people went to Cuba to do whatever they wanted. That's where they went because they could use all the drugs they wanted. The rich ruling class, they went there. They could get all the sex, the drugs, and whatever they wanted in Cuba. Cuba was simply an area where they could go to do what the hell they wanted. And that's what they did. They went there to do whatever the hell they wanted. And Cuba wasn't to them a country. It was a convenience. Go better. It was a playground for them. It was a country to us. It was a playground. The people that lived in there that weren't getting to play, they were the ones who were suffering at the hands of those who saw it as the playground, ended up having some kind of revolution. And here we are today. And they're pissed and they still can't get over that the Cubans didn't want the Cuban Havana to be used as their playground. So they're still have eyes on one of these days we're going to get Havana again. And it will be our playground again. In the same way that in the past, Iran was a place where they sucked all of the oil out. They put a dictator in and sucked the oil out. And now they still got their eyes. If only we could go back, make America great again. Let's go back to the days when we had a puppet leader in charge of Iran and we could suck all the oil out and make a fortune. That's what they're looking at. Our paradigm creates our question. Our paradigm that we got individual countries looking for their own advantage generates a question. And that question is, which of these individual countries that is looking for its own advantage is in charge? And then we look at the struggle, the suffering, the bad things that happen to each country, the things that we're doing. Would we be doing it if it wasn't for that country? And the question is generated, who's in charge? Meanwhile, the globalists are sitting there laughing. And they want us to keep asking that question. Because as long as we're asking that question, we ain't in their paradigm. We're not, as long as we're asking who's in charge, an irrelevant question, we're not asking what is the outcome and how it benefits us. And then instead of saying, I'm opposed to Israel, Israel's bad, now we can say to our government, hey, government, this is a violation of international law. It's a violation of our morals. What's happening, we oppose. And we don't have to necessarily argue about Israel. We'll argue about what's happening. We don't like what's happening, and we're opposed to what's happening. And we don't want to hear this Israel's doing it crap. We don't want to hear this aid to Israel crap. Don't want to talk about aid to Israel. We want to stop it. For instance, you have people whose mindsets are already there. For instance, they'll be shipping some weapons to Israel for this war. To the US is shipping weapons to this location, and these weapons will be used to kill people with. And you got people saying, we're going to get out here and block this port. We're going to actively do something. And these people get out to block the port. They get out to block cars coming into this company that makes the weapons to go to Israel. They understand what's going on. They understand that their direct action is an action that happens inside of their country, that this is happening, it's leaving here and it's going there. We're going to try to block it. You got people that say this company here is benefiting, whatever it is, Starbucks, McDonald's. We're going to boycott this company. We're going to do whatever we're going to do. We're going to put red pig blood or whatever in whatever it is, right? These are people that are doing direct action. They get it. They're not standing around screaming about Israel. They're saying your company right now, your company right here, right in front of me in the United States is taking actions to benefit this war effort over there, this violence over there, this genocide over there. And I'm going to take direct actions to stop you. I don't have to talk about the chicken or the egg. I don't talk about who's in charge, who's not in charge. You're a globalist. The owner of Starbucks don't give a crap about the country. He's got a Starbucks all over the world, and he's laundering his money from Cyprus to the Isle of Man to wherever the hell else he can launder. The concept of a country, that's your little guy. That's still your concept. He's a globalist. He ain't got that concept anymore. And we're stuck. So my, I guess, theory about this, my belief about this is that the argument over whether Israel runs us or we run Israel, and I'm just going to say it the way I'm thinking. You can take it any way you want to. This is boom. It's a small-minded, myopic view of reality. And you're stuck in the nation state concept when you're dealing with people who are globalists, who could give a crap less about the issue of nation states, who don't have any allegiance to any nation states. If I am a billionaire and I have an allegiance to the United States, I want to see the United States secure because I make all my money in the United States, right? I'm making my money in the US. I want the US to be healthy so I can make money in the United States. I want the US banking system to be healthy because I got my money in the US banking system, right? But if I'm making money all over the world, and this is just a small part of it, and I can live without the money I make. If my money's not in the U.S. banking system, it's in Cyprus, the Isle of Man, and or the Caribbean islands. What do I care if the U.S. banking system crashes? My money ain't stuck there. Some of it is, but I can quickly move it if I need to. I can store it elsewhere. I got it in gold. I got it in all kinds of other assets other than just U.S. dollars. So if U.S. dollar crashes and we have hyperinflation, I got my money in something else, and I got a lot of it in things that I own and have bought. So hell with it. Israel, whatever. We need to use Israel as a means to an end. We need to own and control the shipping lanes in the Middle East, the oil coming in and out, who can get it, who can't. We need to expand all in there so China and Russia can't get the things, that natural resources they need out of there. We need to be able to block off Africa so China and Russia can't get through there to Africa. We need to control that strategic choke point, the Middle East as a whole strategic choke point. And the way to do that is good old Dien Bien Phu / Israel. Why? Which is another reason I don't think it's going to work out for them. But if they can keep us arguing over who's in charge, we got this tribal argument going on, right? Well, who's mad? It's the Jews. It's a tribal argument. Oh, yeah, it's the libs. Nah, it's the MAGA people. They keep up the working class people in a nice little all-encompassing, distracting tribal argument where we have to, people say that it's the tribe. Europe, yeah, exactly. You're caught in a tribal argument of which tribe you should be angry at. Should you be mad at the Russians? Well, there's a tribe over there. They're doing something. How about the Jews? Well, you know, we call them the tribe, so certainly you ought to be pissed at them. No, it's immigrants. Well, there's another tribe. We've created that tribe. The immigrants are from all over different places. They're from actually different tribes, but we're going to put them in all one tribe, and we're going to call it the immigrants. But there's Zionist billionaires. Go to Texas and see who all of these Exxon Mobil and all of these ConocoPhillips people. They're white guys from the South. How about this? Saudi Aramco, the chief of Saudi Aramco, right? The CEO. The BlackRock went and recruited him. He's now on the board of BlackRock. So is he part of the Arab tribe? Oh, the Muslims. That's a nice tribe to be mad at. But he's a Muslim or whatever, but he's the CEO of Aramco and he's also in BlackRock. He ain't got a tribe. That's your bullshit. He ain't got a country. That's your crap. He's got Saudi Aramco and he's got BlackRock and he's got more loot than he could ever imagine and control and power. And we argue about tribes. Oh, it's the Jews, it's the blacks, it's the immigrants, it's the this group, it's the gays, it's the trans, it's the I think they deliberately, I sometimes think that as they see people arguing more and more over the whole trans, gay, LGBTQ plus stuff, that they push it more. The more we argue and fight about it, the more they push it. Because they're like, okay, that's something these dumb jackasses will fight about. Let's do that. Hey, I got an idea. The Paris Olympic is open. Let's do one that'll poke a hot poker right in their eye, and that'll generate fury and anger, and they'll call names and they'll fight like hell, but they won't abandon the paradigms that we keep them in, to drag them to hell while they're looking over there and we are cleaning up their tribal paradigm. So now they're going to be mad at the gays and LGBTQ. Oh, these people are weird. They're deviants. They're strange. Let's talk about that tribe. It's a very small tribe. You notice this? If we want to call it tribes, it could get smaller than that. These small, I used to think to myself, what the hell is all this trans stuff? There's like 5 trans people in this country. Yeah, I mean, be infinite. But like, what percentage of people in the United States is trans? Like 0.00000000001% of people are trans. Yet they got us arguing about the trans question. Specifically, why? It is the most irrelevant issue. If somebody asks me, Garland, what do you think about the trans people? I mean, I could care less. Then what do they do to really piss us off? People aren't pissed off enough. I know. Let's have some gay people and we'll have them read to children. And now that'll really infuriate them, the whole gay children stuff. And we're like, gays are reading to children. And we go, but man, why? It's to piss us off. It is to threaten our culture. And we feel like they're threatening our children. And we feel like this. And we fight over that stuff. It's tribal. Just think. To the people, it's one thing that if you're like 2 big tribes, this tribe versus that tribe, and they're fighting. But we're literally fighting over a tribe that's so small it's non-existent. Meanwhile, they're cleaning up. So here's my final thoughts. Who is in charge? Israel or the United States? It's the wrong questions. You only need to focus on outcomes. The outcome is the intent. What's happening? Don't walk around doing all the whys, because all you end up doing is going down a rabbit hole of discussion. I think they're in charge. No, I think that is in charge. What do we accomplish while we do that? We argue amongst each other. Keep yourselves busy, guys, arguing amongst each other about who's in charge. And ultimately, if you get an answer, what then? Well, okay, we've all come to a conclusion that the U.S. is in charge, or is Israel in charge? All right, we've come to that conclusion. Now what? I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. We've argued about it for years, and we've come to a final conclusion, and everybody agrees it is either the U.S. or Israel. Great, we've come to that conclusion. Where do we go there? What do we do with that? See, even then, you're asking a question that even if you answer the question, there's no benefit for the working class. It doesn't solve anything. Does it stop them from all the craziness and wars and stuff? No. It is a intellectual exercise to discuss who's in charge. It has nothing to do with outcomes, what you should or shouldn't do to address it. No. At the end, you got somebody to blame. Okay, Israel's in charge. Great. What does that mean? That means we got to be mad at the Jews. All right, there we go. We have somebody. Now, what do you do then? Do you go beat up the Jews and attack and violence towards the Jews? I guess that starts. And what's that going to do? You've picked a tribe to be angry at, and now you can go take out your anger on them. But not the ruling elite, but not the people. You're not doing anything to actually address the problem. But the people who are blocking weapons going to the ports, the people who are blocking weapons, people from going to work in a weapons factory, they're doing a hell of a lot more than you're doing by arguing about some freaking moron online about which came first, the chicken or the egg, which came first, Israel or the U.S. That's about you. That's about trying to be right. That's about trying to win a conversation. That's about trying to relieve that anxiety of how angry you are about not really being sure who's in charge. But it doesn't do a damn thing to produce an outcome, and it doesn't even address the outcomes. And I'll end by saying this. And you're not even living in the paradigm of the people who make the decisions. So they left. They're sitting there in Monaco. What are you doing? When I leave here, I'm going to Dubai. What about that? Hey, I'm going to fly out to the Caribbean islands because I got to check on some money I just laundered through there. Then I'm going to go to this island where they have young Polynesian girls that I can have sex with at the age of 12. And then when I leave that, I don't know, Eskimos, maybe we'll go to talk to the Inuit Eskimos. Who gives a shit? I'm a billionaire. I got a yacht. I go around the world. What? There's no countries to me. Meanwhile, these poor idiots over here are going to argue about countries. Do you believe that? They're slapping each other. Oh my God. They're arguing about countries. They think they're still countries. There ain't no countries to us. It's just a big playground that benefits us. So anyway, that's my point. That's what I think. And if you want to continue to argue about who's in charge, feel free. The beauty of that argument for the ruling elite is this. Here's the beauty of it for the ruling. If I'm the ruling elite, here's why I love that argument. Because there ain't no answer. Whatever you choose, you can justify an answer of why the U.S. is in charge. I can sit here intellectually and talk to you for an hour about why the U.S. is in charge and make a point and say there's just no way you can think that Israel, the U.S. isn't in charge. And then I can come back on and argue for another hour that why Israel is in charge without even defining really what I mean when I say the U.S. is Israel. So what the hell? And I could easily make the arguments for each of them. And what the hell good would it be? Nothing. At the end, I've just been doing busy work. So I'm just going to say I'm going to view this in a different paradigm and just talk about what's happening, what needs to be done to address the violence, what needs to be done to address the genocide, what we can do, how we can work together, how we can get a different outcome. I think that's the direction I'm going. And I think all of this, if somebody says Israel's doing this and Israel's doing that, you believe this, and Israel controls our country, and Israel controls this and that, I'm just going to listen to that. And I didn't even think I'm going to get in that argument anymore. I don't even think I'm going to get in that discussion anymore. I think I'm just going to say, okay, whatever the case may be. But what can we do different than we're doing now? Because whatever the hell we're doing now ain't working. If something you're doing is not working, then the question has to be, I'm doing the same thing over and over and it ain't doing nothing. Is there anything we can do differently? And what can we do differently? Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate this. If you taking a little bit out of your time, if you in fact do feel that this was a good conversation, share it on all your social media platforms. If you don't, what the hell, at least you wasted an hour out of your life that you can't get back. None of us can get this hour back, but I just felt like running off at the yap. And so I enjoyed running off at the mouth for an hour about this. And I didn't even know when I started where I was going to end, but I got somewhere, if I even ended. If you can afford it, whether it's PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, whatever the case may be, even any other way, if you choose to, if you're motivated to, I would appreciate it if you can support the channel. However, or see, there's the P.O. box. You can mail whatever you want there. If it's just a letter or whatever you want to mail, if it's a donation, anything, you can mail it to my P.O. box. But most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms if you find that it's worth it. If you don't, you lost an hour. So what? Have a great day. I'm out.